I should probably explain the title and the whole juniors thing for some of my non-Scottish and potentially younger viewers. No, we're not talking about youth football. I know it's called juniors, but we will get into that. We are talking about what was historically non-league football in this country. It's called juniors because Scottish football was split into two pyramids, the Football League and the local non-leagues which were administered by the Scottish Junior Football Association. The SJFA was founded nearly 140 years ago and even as recently as 15 years ago administered the vast majority of leagues outside of the Football League. Now, going into the 2025-26 season, it will not have control of any leagues and is effectively a dead organisation, clinging on with just the Junior Cup. So in this video, I'll be going through how this system came about, its long and storied history, and its subsequent downfall from the last 15 years. So, why does the Junior FA exist? Well, to put it simply, it was made up of clubs who weren't members of the SFA. The SJFA would be formed in 1886, with representatives from the local associations of Kirkcaldy, Edinburgh, Lanarkshire, Greenock and Glasgow, while others sent letters of interest. 1886-87 would see the first edition of the Junior Cup, the national competition for clubs at this level, with Fairfield Govan beating Edinburgh Woodside 3-1 after a replay, with the first result being the same but the result was contested. Victorian football was weird, okay? The first three winners of the cup were Fairfield Govan, as mentioned, along with Wishaw Thistle and Burnback Athletic, but after winning these cups they would move into the senior game and play in the Scottish Cup, with Vale of Clyde winning the cup in 1891 being the first club to stay in the juniors after this success. In 1893, a Scottish Juniors Corinthians were formed, basically a representative side, to allow for exhibition games against English equivalent sides. In 1901, the SJFA rejected becoming an affiliate member of the SFA, in what was a first attempt at trying to have everything under one main association akin to what England had done. I should point out that in 2025, the SFA affiliated bodies are the SJFA, who would eventually join in 2011, the Scottish Youth FA, Scottish Women's Football, Scottish Amateur FA, Scottish Schools FA, Scottish Para Football, and the Scottish Welfare FA, which, if you're wondering what welfare football is, it was founded after World War I for workers' football teams. The most famous example possibly being Ferranti Thistle, who went on to become Meadowbank Thistle and are now currently Livingston. Whilst the leagues were still sorted by county and district FAs, the cup meanwhile had been going from strength to strength. The first edition had 39 clubs take part. 1892 would see that number rise to 113, 1898 saw 201 clubs, 1906 saw 241 clubs enter, but World War I would see the entry list drop from 227 clubs in 1914 to just 83 clubs in 1919. A record number of clubs would enter for 1922-23, with 412 clubs looking to take part, with Parkhead coming out on top after beating Baillieston 3-1 in a replay. The first game was actually a draw this time, there were no protests about results. There were some controversies during this early period, however. The 1923-24 season saw one of the weirdest league seasons I will probably have to talk about coming from the Stirlingshire League. This was a league of 20 members, in which nearly all of them failed to complete their fixtures. This led to the league deciding to set a playoff between the top 4 clubs, but only took into account results where a team had played home and away against another team. Clubs also had to have completed 50% of the league season, which disadvantaged clubs who had been successful in the cups, leading to a situation where St Ninian's Thistle played a game with 5 players. Unfortunately, I could not find who eventually won this mess of a league. Then there was an issue with senior teams turning some local clubs into effectively B teams. 1932 saw Port Glasgow Athletic complain to the SJFA about the addition of Morton Juniors to the league. At the time, there was also Bayview Athletic for East Fife, Barry's Athletic for Raith Rovers, Dunfermline Athletic had a juniors, and Ayr United Juniors also existed in the system. Nothing would come of it as these clubs would fold soon enough, although Morton held out until 1943. We also had the Glasgow Junior FA leave due to a multitude of disputes in the late 20s, but this was resolved by the early 30s. They also did this between 1907 and 1908, as they weren't getting their own way. Typical Ouija's.
Screw you guys, I'm going home. But Carmen, we're trying to... screw you guys,
The big dispute of this time, however, was the intermediate dispute. This was down to senior clubs taking players from junior clubs without adequate compensation or even consent from the junior club. This took place between 1925 and 1931, with reports in 1925 that relations between clubs and the SJFA had gotten so bad there were talks of a possible breakaway, as if Scottish football couldn't get more complicated at this time. Eventually, a committee was formed including the welfare clubs to try and get a solution in place. During this time, the Glasgow Junior League initiated legal action against Barnsley over the transfer of two players, along with Parkhead going to court against Dunfermline. In March 1926, the Scottish Intermediate Junior Football Association was formed by 62 clubs with the intention of allowing clubs to earn a transfer fee from senior clubs. The SFA and SJFA therefore banned the signing of players from this breakaway league. This was ignored as players still moved between clubs in all three associations, but finally in 1931 a deal was agreed as clubs would be guaranteed a minimum of £50 compensation from senior clubs, along with greater warning time. £50 doesn't sound like a lot these days, but to convert 1931 money to 2025, that £50 would now be worth £2,900. I also want to give a mention to a league that actually left the SJFA due to the involvement of senior teams. The North of Scotland Junior FA was formed in 1888 in Inverness and covered much of the North and West Highlands. In 1935, however, they left the juniors due to the fact that senior teams were competing in it with their reserve teams, and as mentioned before with affiliate clubs, some teams weren't happy about this. The league would be renamed the North of Scotland Second 11 League, and clubs would be able to gain SFA membership. In 1984, with most of the reserves gone, it was renamed again to the name we recognise now, the North Caledonian League. Whilst other leagues had disbanded or merged with others, this is the only case I could find of an entire league switching from junior to senior in this time period. 1968 would see the first centralised reorganisation of the junior structure. As travel links had improved significantly, it was possible for clubs to play outside of their direct local area on a more regular basis outside of cup competitions, allowing for a more regionalised setup rather than county leagues. This led to a reduction from 10 leagues to 6. East Region, which covered Edinburgh, the Lothians, the Borders and Falkirk. Fife remained as its own league thanks to its large member count. Tayside Region covering Dundee, Angus and Perthshire. North Region covering Aberdeenshire, Banffshire and Moray, Ayrshire Region covering, Ayrshire, and the Central Region covering Glasgow, Stirlingshire, Dunbartonshire, Clackmannanshire and Lanarkshire. Whilst attendances were still high for the bigger, more established teams, due to the changing economic situation in Scotland, a lot of teams, especially those from small mining and manufacturing towns and villages, were going under. Between 1960 and 1970, 28 teams went under for a variety of reasons, with a majority of them being from communities whose main economic purpose had been lost. Whilst this would provide greater stability for clubs who did survive, it was already evident that junior football was on the decline. Of course, the economic issues that were being faced also played a part, but the greater exposure of Scottish Football League clubs, especially for Celtic and Rangers, helped continue a trend of lower and lower attendances. The Junior Cup final used to rival the Scottish Cup for attendance numbers, with games being played at Hampden and regularly having attendances of over 25,000, with Peters Hill vs Irvine Meadow in 1951 having a record attendance of 77,650. In fact, between 1946 and 1956, 8 finals had attendances of over 50,000. 1959 would see the last final to have over 60,000, with Irvine Meadow against Shettleston attracting 65,000 fans. Johnston Borough vs Cambuslang Rangers saw 49,115 turn up and would be the closest we'd ever get to exceeding 50,000. 1969 saw Cambuslang Rangers play against Kirkintilloch Rob Roy in front of 32,500, the last time crowds exceeded 30,000, and the 1976 final between Darvel and Bo'ness would be the last final with an attendance over 20,000. The last reorganisation came in 2002 when the West Region was created through merging the Ayrshire and Central Leagues, East Region was expanded to take in the Fife and Tayside Leagues, whilst the North Region stayed the same. During this time, we would occasionally see teams join from the amateurs and a few go defunct, but 2007 would see a major change. Over the last few years, SFA affiliated leagues were playing in their own cups, which would act as qualification for the Scottish Cup. This would now be scrapped, with clubs who are members of the SFA getting entry to the first round along with those who won the East of Scotland League, South of Scotland League and 2 Highland League teams getting a bye to the second round. Most importantly for the juniors, however, was that the winners of the North, East and West regions would get a place along with those who won the Junior Cup. This would be the first time clubs who were members of the Junior FA would be able to play in the Scottish Cup, with the notable exception of Girvan, who were playing in the Cup anyway as they used to be an SFA member until 2004 before leaving the South of Scotland League to join the West region. And this was the first of the upcoming changes that would eventually see the demise of the juniors as a separate footballing structure. 2009 would see Formartine United, Tariff United and Strathspey Thistle leave the North region to join the Highland League for greater competition. But 2013 would see the SFA create a new league at Tier 5 in the senior pyramid, the Lowland League. I covered the Lowland League and its history in its own video, but the addition of this league was to allow for a playoff between the winner of this league, the winner of the Highland League, and whoever finished bottom of League 2, meaning there is now a route for non-league clubs to enter the Football League that isn't waiting for a new election period brought on by a club going under or league expansion. The Lowland League would also have relegation playoffs involving teams in the East of Scotland League and South of Scotland Leagues, and this would prove to be a catalyst in finally uniting the pyramids. Whilst Preston Athletic had already moved to the East of Scotland League back in 1994 and subsequently became founding members of the Lowland League, it was relative newcomers Kelty Hearts who in 2017 made the move from the East Region Juniors to the East of Scotland League. They won the league and were promoted to the Lowland League. This success would prompt a wave of clubs to ditch the East Region and join the East of Scotland League, with 25 teams moving over in 2018. 2019 saw Glenrothes and Kinnell move over, before 2020 came along and saw a further 8 teams join, forcing the 2020-21 season to have the East Super League, now the only league in the East Region, to be split into a North Region with 17 teams from Dundee, Angus and Tayport, the only Fife team that didn't move to the East of Scotland League, and a South Region composed solely of teams from West Lothian. 10 teams who were actual members, whilst another 2 who were reserve teams of former members Bo'ness United and Linlithgow Rose. The 10 West Lothian teams would join the East of Scotland League at the end of the season, effectively killing the juniors in the East, but things would change even more in the West. In February 2020, talks were held between the Lowland League, East of Scotland League and West Region clubs about forming an equivalent West of Scotland League. By April, all of the West Region clubs had submitted their interest in joining such a setup, along with 3 amateur teams and Bonnyton Thistle who would move over from the South of Scotland League. Whilst these clubs would retain their junior membership so they could still play in the Junior Cup, this meant that for the 2021-22 season, the SJFA would only be administering the now rebranded Midland League, consisting of the leftovers from the East Region, and the North Region covering the northeast of the country. But these 2 leagues were also now part of the greater senior pyramid, as whilst the West would see clubs have the potential to move into the Lowland League, the SFA drew up boundaries, meaning that clubs from the Midland League and North Region would have the ability to earn promotion to the Highland League. The problem was that these clubs could only earn promotion if they had an SFA licence, which clubs outside of the clubs who joined the East of Scotland League, many did not have. In fact, in the 3 leagues that were below the Highland League, only Banks of Dee had a licence at the time, while the West had a few more licensed clubs, but issues would arise later. The 2021-22 season would see Banks of Dee win the North Region, and as they were the only winners of the Highland feeder leagues that had a licence, they had the opportunity to play Fort William for the final Highland League spot. Fort William would withdraw as they had no registered goalkeepers. Typical Fort William if we're being honest. Since then, we haven't had a playoff as the only teams as of the end of the 24-25 season who have a licence in the Midland, North and North Caledonian leagues are Golspie Sutherland, Lockheed United and Tayport. Hold on a minute, Fort William don't have a licence now? Well, guess we're not getting away days to Clagham Park anytime soon. Meanwhile, in the West of Scotland League, Darvel won the inaugural season and entered a playoff against East of Scotland side Tranent and South of Scotland side St Cuthbert Wanderers. Tranent would win both games, seeing them promoted to the Lowland League. The next 2 seasons would see Beef win the league, but as they had no licence, and still don't might I add, they weren't able to challenge for promotion. But this season it will be Clydebank taking part, who do have a licence. East of Scotland teams meanwhile have seen Kelty and Bonnyrigg move up into the SPFL, along with Tranent, Linlithgow, Broxburn and Bowness United all making it to the Lowland League. There is another major change coming in regards to the SJFA however. As the West of Scotland, East of Scotland, South of Scotland and North Caledonian leagues all run themselves with oversight from the SFA, the Midland League and North Region leagues are still under the Junior FA. From the 25-26 season however, they will be switching to running themselves, joining the rest of the non-league pyramid. This was announced on the 12th of February 2025 and 2 days later, the SJFA would make another announcement in regards to the Junior Cup. In this announcement, they talk about how they've been in discussion with the other Tier 6 leagues and the Lowland League around the participation of the national trophy at our level. Whilst nothing has come out since then at the time of writing, it seems like the Junior Cup is going to become a general non-league cup similar to the FA Trophy in England, where all teams from outside the Football League take part. This seems to be the final part of the integration process of the SJFA and SFA, as after about 140 years, Scotland will finally have one unified pyramid for professional and semi-professional football. And whilst yes, it will be a shame to see the junior name disappear, ultimately, having a functioning footballing pyramid is more important. That's all for this video, and of course, I hope you enjoyed. What are your memories of the juniors? Is this integration something that should have happened sooner? It does make you wonder what would have changed if they did become affiliated with the SFA back in 1901. Let us know in the comments below. I'd like to thank the National Library of Scotland for having a centenary history of Scottish junior football by David McGlone and Bill McClure, as without that book we would be missing basically everything pre-1968, seeing as that book was the only source. So I had to travel to do research for this video, so once again thanks to them. Of course, usual requests of liking, sharing and subscribing are greatly appreciated, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.